Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. I am your host, Kelly Meehan, a citizen of the universe and a passage keeper and mentor for our new Earth children. I believe we are entering into a new psychic structure of our reality, and it is meant to embody deeper trust and ways into solid self-love and fearless integrity. Our new world energy of spirit babies needs us to consciously create within conception, trust pregnancy, and have freedom to birth and parent from innate wisdom. This is Spirit Baby Radio. Welcome to episode 191, May 2024, The Way of Fertility, Awakening Your Reproductive Potential Through the Power of Ancient Wisdom. I have a special guest episode today, and it is Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
She's been here before, and I was on her summit, and I've been on her podcast. She's been on my podcast, and everybody's so excited. She has created a book. Yay.
Yay.
Beautiful. And I love it. Me and Michelle were just talking in the before, and man, I feel like everybody wants to hear and feel that energy. It's so powerful. And I absolutely adore and love Michelle and the energy of fertility she brings and the connection of the other people we kind of know in this space of really rising to heal, like our fertility, to connect with our bodies. And she's going to share this awesome book. And I'm just smiling because, well, I should read about you. Let me read about you real quick. Michelle, say your last name again.
Oravitz.
Michelle Oravitz is an acupuncturist specializing in fertility health. She found her love in Chinese medicine after it helped her through her own menstrual cycle challenges, and this inspired her to change her career from architecture to acupuncture. Michelle is the host of a top-rated podcast called the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. She has been endorsed by best-selling authors such as Aimee Raupp, Jessica Ortner, and Dr. Lisa Miller. Michelle has been on a mission to help women get pregnant naturally and IVF preparation. Through her one-on-one work at her acupuncture clinic as well as online, she recently authored a new book, The Way of Fertility, which dives deep into the energetics of fertility through the lens of ancient wisdom. Michelle believes that our bodies are hardwired to procreate, and by connecting to our innate inherent wisdom, we are awaken our natural reproductive vitality. Yay. Welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. It's always fun talking to you.
I know. And I love this. There's so many things I love about the book. And I'm not bullshitting either, because I really was like, whoa, like I was really going through the book and I'm like, this is really great read. It's a nice read. There's such synergy in the, it's like a self-help to me. It's like you offered so many like pieces to the self-healing fertile journey and the stories. I love the stories of people. It feels so real. But one of the things, and I loved even hearing your story. I was like, oh yeah, and I've heard it before, but I like reading it. It just makes you feel like, wow, like your own struggle, like created this movement of this feminine, like knowing your body, and it propelled you into the ancient wisdom of nature and medicine through acupuncture and other things. And so one of the things, I kind of want to begin with and share more like, well, yeah, what inspired you to create this book after, what inspired you? But I really love this quote in the book, and it's so real. And this is like, I want to like plaster this quote ever because it's so true. And it's something I think about often. Conception is less about what to do and more about how to be. Like, I want to sink that in. And I want you to share, share about that quote, actually. How about that? We'll start from there.
Well, it's almost like owning what you already are. It's like, you don't have to like search to become a human. You already are a human, and humans are hardwired to procreate. It's part of your makeup. So when we search, what we do is we actually stifle a lot of our energy, because this is what we see in Chinese medicine. I see it all the time of people coming in, and when they go against themselves and against their bodies, or they overthink or overstress, what happens is it actually has an impact on you physiologically, and it can impact your body, your organs. Each organ has its own spirit, its own energy. So everything gets impacted. Your emotions are not separate. Your thoughts are not separate. We do have choices in our thought, and those thoughts eventually lead into emotions. So yes, we can control our emotions, not when they're active. When they're active, it's like trying to control the wind. You just got to like let it move, and you got to feel it and validate it. That's why you can't see somebody who's really upset and say, don't cry. It just doesn't work, and actually can make it worse. So it's better to allow yourself once things are active. But before that, our thoughts can impact that, and really just like our identifications and knowing that we already have everything that we need. It's just a matter of really truly believing that, and also truly listening to the intelligence that is already hardwired in our being. And you know exactly what I mean, because you are very much in tune with that intelligence. That intelligence you have such a strong channel with, that you're able to like really almost at will access it. But that's because you've done it a lot. You're familiar with that terrain. We all have it. It's just not familiar to a lot of us. And so a lot of the ancients, this is what inspired me. And part of it is I think you just channel things.
Mhm.
It's like when I used to just get inspired to paint, I just felt like this urge, and I can't describe it, but it just was there. And I feel like that is the soul's conception, where we're conceiving and birthing a creation. And so to me, the book was one of those things in my life where it just kind of, I have to do this. Okay, I'm going to do it. And it just kind of happened. And it wasn't an overnight thing. It took a little while, but eventually it turned into something.
Show
And
us the
one of the,
book. Show us the
oh,
book, please.
yes.
Yeah, I want to,
So
for those
it's
that
right
are
here.
like, got to come to the YouTube
Woo!
channel to see it. Look at this. Look at that powerful image. I love it. Thank
And I
you.
know it's a very simple image. I actually helped create it. I created like the basics of it and then had somebody kind of clean it up and make it presentable. But I like that image because it just shows, kind of like the way in. If you look at the image, it has this like way in internally. And part of that, yes, it looks like a pregnancy. But another thing
Mm.
is it also is is really what a lot of ancients have always told us. You'll hear lots of different ancient traditions, many different ones, and you can find many different ones, and but from Native American to Taoism to Ayurvedic medicine, or the Vedas, and a lot of them say to look within. And this is that basically all the answers lie within. And that within is really that connection to, I guess you can call it even the quantum field, sort of the Akasha, like where all of the information is. And that is pretty much the source that made us manifest into this physical form. So when we're trying to connect with just the physical form, we're not going to get as far. But when we go into the source and the root, that is where all of the information, all of the intelligence can regulate and redirect you so that you're back into balance. Because that's ultimately what we keep seeing in nature. And it has a mathematic equation. It's very intelligent.
Mm.
We can see it with the Fibonacci sequence and very specific mathematics, and with sacred geometry, which I talk about in the book. Like it's something that you see over and over again. And it's there because it's part of the formula that creates vitality in nature. And nature always grows. When it
Mm.
works, it constantly reproduces itself.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. It's like co-creation with the earth, with nature. And it makes me, when you say that, I was actually thinking about even as simple, I'm a big fungus mushroom grower now the past few years. I've been studying it, mycology. And when you said that, I thought about how the mycelium spores spread
Hmm.
or the spores spread and the mycelium takes and it does its thing. And then all of a sudden, boop,
It's
like
wild.
the mushroom literally, the something about fungus, it literally can grow overnight and be just like, what just happened? And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, and I feel like when we're in reflection with like the trees and the earth and like, how are we not a part of that, right? And I know in your
Yep.
book, there's a lot of stuff around nature and tips and things. And yeah, so tell us more.
Yeah. I mean, so that's really what it is. I mean, it's really coming back home. because I feel like when we're trying to, it's also like I talk about the balance of the yin and the yang, and ultimately you will see the yin and the yang superimposed into every single thing in this life.
Mm.
Everything that lives has a yin and a yang aspect to it. I show how that could be even reflected in the menstrual cycle. So you will see
Mm.
it. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You'll
I
see
love
it,
that.
and it's going to show itself to you on your body, like why your body always wants homeostasis. So homeostasis
Mm.
is actually a conventional medicine term. They talk about it in science, and they know that in order to survive or thrive, you have to have homeostasis in your body
Mm.
or nature. So you'll see that, and that's basically the basis of the yin and the yang. What we see now, just in modern day culture, is we are very much, way too much in the yang phase where we're going
Mm.
after everything. So we cannot like fathom having something without having to go after it. And sometimes
Interesting.
that does not
Yeah.
work. Like, yes, it
Mm.
needs to be there, and it does work in many circumstances, but not all the time. Like the egg doesn't run after the sperm. It just doesn't work that way. If it did,
Wow.
it wouldn't work. So where, at what point do we get into the state of calling in rather than running after?
Mm. Oh, now this is a triggering one for people, right? It's like, oh, you're telling me not to do. It's like how to come back to me, it's like a lot of stuff that I share in my sessions is like, are you receiving, receiving,
Mhm.
receiving? And
Yeah.
there is a new, almost like we have to brainwash ourselves to unhinge from the doing to just being and receiving. And there is such a great mystery. And I actually, it's interesting you talk about nature, but I have one of your quotes here from the book, and I wrote, harness powerful rhythms of nature.
Hmm.
And it's like, again, when you say that, it reminds me of like, yeah, like being in nature, like how we have forgotten how we are in nature. And I know you talk even about chemicals and EMFs, and it's like, yeah, all this like stuff is like bombarding us. And it's like, I was thinking about that, and you're more of an expert in that area. But like I've seen a lot of sperm issues and things that like, and it's like, oh yeah, like we didn't have we didn't carry around little computers with us, like in our pockets next to our body. Like we didn't do that for a long time. And now it's like, what does that look like? Like, how does it mess up our hormones? And, even for women too, of course. What can you say about that?
Well, I could say one thing that came to my mind as you were talking about is that just to remember, even if you're in a pattern of imbalance, we are actually more balanced than imbalance. Our
Mm.
nature is more balanced. So it's always going to revert back to it given the chance. So if you do things that make you feel good, whether it's joyous things or going out into nature, like spending time with family, like elevated emotions and getting quiet,
Mm.
allowing yourself to default, you will always, if you do these things like getting quiet and meditating, connecting to that intelligence,
Mm.
you will always default to balance because that is your nature. That's actually how nature intended you to be. So you are actually that way more than you are the imbalance. The imbalance is actually not your nature.
I love that.
That's
Oh
you
my
moving
gosh,
away from
everybody take
nature.
that in. Take that in. That's so good because we can be so self-deprecating. Like I'm not doing it enough and this. And when you said that, I can literally feel such an ease of energy, like a permission to be like, oh yeah, like, and to me, it's like, again, trusting the intelligence, right? Of like,
Yeah.
yeah, my body wants to come back to balance. It wants to
Yes.
come back to nature. But I know what we see in our culture is a lot of infiltration,
Hmm.
poking, prodding, scraping, removing. And it's like, oh, and I want to say there are rare needs for those things. I want to say rare, but it's become the majority.
Hmm.
It's like, can we not tamper with the body and just really sit? And I know it's very activating for women that are in IVF or preparing for IVF, but I'm going to say it before you're jumping for that is a very big decision to be made. I don't think it should be so nonchalantly like I'm going to buy milk at the store, I'm going to go
Hmm.
get IVF. Like really sitting with your body for more than a month or two, not just going, "Oh, I'm just going to, because it's like where is your energy? Who are you? What is this connection?" Because a lot of women have, they say failed, right, IVF, but I feel like there's something more in that. the body doesn't want to always, the body may not be ready for the timing of the child and the timing of reality and the timing of whatever. But the piece I feel like is important, right? As the vessel, it's like, again, it's a really hot, big area. It's like, I feel like we need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe IVF is your answer, but I feel like to maximize it and really not go through the abusiveness of it is like, okay, right? What would you give someone in that space? What kind of insight would you say from your practice?
I mean, as you were talking about it, I think to myself, I mean, we've all been in situations where we make decisions out of fear, versus, sometimes we kind of move away from what we don't want rather than moving towards what we want. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can make us make decisions that aren't really
Mm.
feeling fully aligned, but we feel like we don't have a choice. And in some cases, it's true. So I can't say that this is true for everybody. Sometimes we really don't have a choice.
Mm.
But sometimes, and a lot of times, and I've seen it actually a lot of times in my office, where people come in and they have one conversation with a doctor and they say, oh, because of your age, you're running out. And it's just not true. Like, I know it's not true. I just have seen it. And sometimes the age that they're even saying is really on the low end to what I see. And so I'm like, wait a second. Like, even if you do end up needing IVF, like, which I'm not like discounting, why is waiting 3 months to kind of really center yourself? Like,
Mm.
is that really going to make your eggs disappear? No, it's
Mm.
really not. If anything, and I've seen this actually with my own eyes, I've had somebody recently that I've been working with, and she actually came to me after seeing the nutritionist, doing all the things, doing another Dutch test earlier. All I worked with her on was mindset, period, except one other thing. She stopped eating gluten. She did feel better. But with those two things, and she started meditating like religiously, to the
Mm.
point where she now is able to navigate her inner terrain. That's how I'm like, she's
Wow.
able to control her thoughts about things when she's faced with difficult things. When she got her period, she used to be devastated. At one point, she was able to actually shift herself. Not that she was denying her feelings, but she was shifting her thoughts about
Mm.
it, and she felt better. So that was interesting. And then she started getting all kinds of signs and interesting things. So we did another Dutch test, which not all the time am I able to do two or have another one to compare to. But after about 3 to 4 months, her oxidative stress actually really went down.
Wow. Can you just explain what a Dutch test is for everybody?
Yes, thank you for asking. Yes, so it's a dried urine test and it does comprehensive hormones. It basically looks at like a lot of different hormones and peaks throughout the day. So you take 4 samples. I think
Mm.
there's one, the fifth one is like optional. And it measures a lot of different things. It measures your organic acids, like
Mm.
nutrients, and then it measures also hormones and melatonin and cortisol, estrogen, progesterone. And it looks at like different things throughout the day, different types and how they metabolize. And so it does really give you a nice clear picture, but it also shows oxidative stress.
Mm.
So in her case, it actually showed that it lowered. So oxidative stress, if people aren't as familiar, is it basically shows like what happens as you age. When you have more oxidative stress, it can impact the mitochondria of your cells, which can lower the quality of eggs, lower the quality of sperm as well. So it is really important actually to get that in check. If you are to do IVF and you're lowering that, you're actually going to
Mm.
improve your chances of healthier eggs to fertilize. So waiting a couple of months, if that means you're actually going to improve your overall health and your oxidative
Mm.
stress and
Mhm.
possibly your egg quality, then it's more worth it. And it's not like you're just going to run out of eggs. I mean, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that fast. So you can improve the quality over time, even though you're getting older.
Oh,
So,
people
and,
need
and
to hear that one. Say that
yeah,
one again.
you can improve your quality of eggs or even quality of life or even reverse your aging a few months later or even up to a year later. Some people do.
Wow. Yeah.
And they do. They actually, you can reverse your biological age, not the number, that biology. And I mean, you look younger. We're talking about that.
I know we
But
were talking.
meditation actually can also slow down your aging and possibly reverse it. So biologically.
Yeah.
So that's where, when we get into this desperation mode where we feel
Mm.
like we don't have a chance and we're going more into fear or like moving away from what we don't want, then we're not really truly coming at it from and I don't want to like minimize it to this, but it's like an abundance mindset
Mm.
because it's just believing that that could be true for you.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that's a very important aspect. I think that the bottom line is that we're really powerful, and sometimes we get convinced that we're not. And then we
Wow.
make
Yeah.
decisions based on that. So you're not really getting the full picture because you're just getting what science knows so far. And actually, science knows a little more. There's a lot more out there, but not a lot of the mainstream medicine is
Oh,
aware of that.
yeah. I always feel like I want to erase mainstream and put, I hate the word
We need
alternative
quality.
medicine, but I
We need
want like
quality.
holistic wholeness medicine should be the forefront of our conscious, well, this is my desire of our
Yeah.
consciousness. It's here, it's there, and it's going to be like the thing. Whereas all the other stuff that we've put in the spotlight become a little bit on the background. That's all. It doesn't, it's not minimum. I'm not erasing it, but it's
Right.
like the
They work
forefront of the
together.
wholeness of like,
Yeah.
where we're kind of moving into. But so another thing, of course, Michelle knows I'm like scouring through her book going, where's the spirit baby?
Yeah. Oh, it's there.
And on a little secret chapter in there, there is a little spirit baby vibes about and dreams. You talk about dreams, and I love that dream. Was that your dream? I'm not going to give it away. About seeing the second child. Was that your dream or is
Yeah,
that?
that was
Oh,
me.
I
That was
love
me. And
that. I
it's
love
really
that.
weird.
Okay.
I could talk about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I actually literally after realizing or seeing, recognizing that could have been her in my dream,
Mm,
I had that same, like, was that my dream? Did I dream that?
interesting.
And thank God I told both my husband and my mom about it when it happened.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that I planted that information in their minds when it happened, because had I not had that
You would just
confirmation,
forget.
I would have questioned myself and thought it's a figment of my imagination because it just can't be. It's so
Well,
bizarre.
that's what all spirit baby work is for me. I always say it is a figment of my imagination because I did the same thing you did now coming up to probably 18 years ago, where I saw a friend who had, but I told everybody. I'm like, is
Yes.
she having twins? Is a boy and a girl? Da, da, da. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. 18 years ago, by the way. I'm like, I don't know. And I thought it was a figment of my imagination. And then like months down the road, everybody's texting me like, holy, what, Kelly? Don't you remember? You
That
said
is
that.
so,
You said, and I was
that's
like, oh, I
amazing. I
did. Oh, yeah,
love
yeah, I
that.
did do that. So I know that feeling. And
That's
maybe
awesome.
I would even encourage people that are tuning in, write everything in a journal, tell somebody, tell your partner, tell a friend, and don't feel weird about it. Don't feel
Yeah,
embarrassed. It's just, I have so many prophetic and supernatural things happening more now in this timeline. I just say it. And then some of them, are just sitting to come true, and some of them have. And I'm like, hey, look, now like I ain't making this shit up. It's
yes.
not just floating around. It's like we get real information if we
Hmm.
listen, and we don't have to know everything. Like when the earth shifts and I know that something big is coming, I can feel it. My body tells me, and I say, hey, something's coming. And usually, sometimes weeks later, or even a few days later, something happens. And I go, all right, like I don't know, like specifically at times the depth of it. But then I'm like, I like that I have an awareness that, oh, something's getting my attention in the field. And I encourage that for other people. Like, don't let the mind feel like it has to figure everything out, right? It's like, okay, I'm
Totally.
just receiving it. Like, right?
Exactly. Like you're not figuring out what somebody's about to tell you, right? You can't. You have to listen
Good
and you
point.
receive that information. And that's where, yeah, you're allowing that intelligence to come in.
And I see that a lot because I know you work with a lot, and I work with, I don't know what you work with a lot. Maybe you can share that, but like I see a lot of infertility and miscarriage. It's a
Hmm.
really big area for me. And And so there's so much in that. There's so much in that and the rebuilding of the inner confidence, the self-love.
Mhm.
What can you say about that? I know you've had like a lot of lost clients or any stories or anything.
Yeah, I mean it's a very hard one because having a pregnancy after that loss is a whole different ball game. It's so hard because people are literally experiencing PTSD. So
Mm.
it's a really tough one. So it is important, really important to honor the experiences that you have and allowing yourself to fully, this is what I always talk to my patients about, like to fully allow yourself to grieve,
Mm.
and because it is a loss. And I think that it gets brushed to the side again by some of the mainstream, it does happen. It's like, oh, okay, oh, well, just wait a little bit and start again.
Yeah, it's very
No.
heartbreaking. And you know what? Like I actually had a woman the other day, since I work a lot with that area, or even like miscarriage, abortion, it's like abortion termination. I start to feel angry inside when I hear these stories of like my work, hello, you're giving them your energy and life to work. Wasn't in agreement with my grieving or my time of off. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I just want to go in there and be like, what? Like it aggravates me now because I'm like,
Oh,
is
it's
this where
very
we,
upsetting.
yeah, I'm
It
like, is
upsets
this
me
where we've
too. I get really angry,
like
myself.
have we come to this place with women where it's just like, oh yeah, like it's useless, it's pointless,
Very dismissive.
and this vulnerable woman, and typically sometimes these women already have a lost history. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And a lot of them are very empathic women, very sensitive feelers, which we want our sensitive feelers to feel a wholeness and a beauty in the world. And then they're
Yeah.
literally this work energy giving space. And I'm just like, oh, like it just really
I
hits
know.
sometimes. So yeah, so tell me more about what you've seen around loss. I mean, there's also, besides miscarriage, of course, there's later loss, which is like really, of course, heartbreaking. And what happens after it's like now there's this energy of like the fear, the loss. I mean, that's a hard one. I mean, I see it with a lot of women, and it's like I feel like there's a unity between the bereavement moms that have been there and how they can build and come together and know that it's okay to have fear as you receive your next pregnancy, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is yeah, so I mean, there's so many layers to this. And one of the things that I often suggest for people to do is have some kind of ceremony or have some kind of like ritual around it, or write a letter. And in the book, I talk about writing a letter. You can actually find eco-friendly dissolvable paper and write a letter on that and then put it out into a body of water.
Mm.
And water is a very feminine energy. And that's like, you think about like the womb and how, a baby's surrounded by the amniotic fluid,
Mm.
and there's something to that, but that's like of the earth. And I really find things like that being very powerful, and people do it and it releases them. It just releases them because then they don't feel like there's anything left unsaid, even though the baby
Mm.
doesn't understand words in real, like, like when they're born, but it's not about that. It's about that intention, the emotions, and the communication of how you feel to the spirit of the baby,
Yeah.
and allowing that communication, being able to like really verbalize that and express it, and giving yourself that option, that opportunity. I mean, there were so many things, we were talking about things that were pissing us off before, but yeah, I mean, one of the things
Yeah.
that really upset me, I mean, I couldn't believe, like, it was just such neglect,
Mm.
is one of my patients, it was a little like more developed, and she wanted to keep the tissue to test it, and they tell her that they lost it. I'm
Oh my
lost it.
gosh.
Where would you lose it? And so,
Oh,
just to kind of go back to that, when you were saying that, I was
yeah.
thinking about that. It's just like things like that happen. So through that frustration, and then it can cause resentment too.
Yeah.
Writing those things down, really making that
Mm.
connection, having that conversation, and it's hard. It could be a very hard thing, but it's really important to do. And then I've also had people who have had abortions in the past, and they do a lot of this is something that I've seen common. They do it, they don't think about it at the time because they know that that was the only choice they had. But then when this comes up and they're trying to conceive and it's not working, for some reason they tell themselves, oh, when I was able to, I didn't have it. So maybe this is like kind of a punishment. And
I
so
hear that a lot. I hear that
I
a
hear
lot.
that. I hear that a
Yeah.
lot. So I try to reframe. I bring them back like, did you even have any choice at the time? And having that conversation, if you do feel like you really need to resolve this, write down everything that you're
Mm.
feeling. So it works amazingly to just like allow people to have that sense of closure of just at least acknowledging that piece of themselves and having that voice. And it's not an easy thing to address. It's not an easy thing to think about even, but it's really powerful. It needs to be looked at because it's a wound that you're carrying. And not that it's always going to be a scar. It's part of your life. It's part of your history. It never like fully goes away. But having that, at least that voice and that ability to just address what it is that you're feeling, I think is really powerful.
I do feel like when you're making me think about the things that I've done, I love ritual. I love
Yeah,
ritual.
we need it.
Not just
Humans
like the
need it.
blessing way of pregnancy, but the ritual of grief and healing. And in my room, you cannot see, but I have crystals and wood and flowers and statues. And I'm always creating different altars. And I've actually just recently had a spirit baby say, my mom needs to do an honoring ceremony of some kind for herself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I feel
That's
like our
cool.
babies do nudge us too. And so because they know this earth world, this atmosphere has different energy to it. And so because that child is whole and fine, right? It's
Mhm.
a really mind game. And so yeah, just whatever the honoring is. I love the paper. I'm going to look that up and get it because I'm like, oh yeah, the paper, that's so awesome. Like we talk about putting into fire, but what about into the water and the dissolving of it and feeling, yeah, that like that connection with it. And one of my most famous authors, which I've shared with a lot of people in grief, is Francis Weller. And he has a book called The Wild Edge of Sorrow, which I want like everybody in the world to read because it is, I call it soul psychology. It's very poetic and it just talks about world grief, self grief, personal, all these different areas, but it's so poetic in the grief that we have to be, as he would say, an apprenticeship with. You can't, it just cannot go away. And one of the big things in the area as I'm supporting grief, especially with miscarriage or even stillbirth, like, or even abortion, right when it happens, your life it has to stop at that moment. You have to go into that darkness, that shadow, that grief space, because that's how you're wired. It's not a bad
Mhm.
thing. Yes, there can feel levels of trauma in it, but I don't want us to keep looking at grief as trauma. There could be
Mhm.
trauma connected to it, but it doesn't have to be trauma, right?
Right, right.
It's
That's
like
so
we
true.
want to be healthy and heal through it. And so I tell women tenderness and compassion, especially those days after, don't, it's going to be hard to sit with the self. Like I got to go busy, I got to go do this. No,
Mhm.
don't do that. Like you're sad, you're feeling a lot of things and you do what feels like natural to do, but watch the avoidance or the denial or
Mhm.
even as simple as getting a bowl, going getting flowers, putting it in the water and just splashing it, just feeling the earth, like just, or doing an art project or watching something funny helps too. But just like really taking moments of breathing with the body, touching the body and just feeling. And it's okay to be mad at Spirit Baby. It's your baby. It's okay to be like,
You feel the feels.
yes.
Judaism talks about the Shiva. You've heard of that before?
I have, yeah.
When a person passes away, you cannot do anything but for 7 days stay at home. And then you get a gathering of community. So people
Mhm.
come over and make you food so that you have nothing else to do but
Yes.
sit and talk to people and process.
I mean, how gorgeous is like, why can't we just do that for everybody? Hello. You don't just go to work the next day because you need to pay your bills. I hate that too.
I
It
know.
feels unfair to the
But the
spirit.
community, that's
Yeah.
the beauty is the community is supposed to come and help
Yes.
out so that you are
And
able to really, they're supporting, they're kind of spotting you in that area of like not doing things.
many women, I know we're in this culture of like, I don't know, I don't reach out, but I know having just this recent grief experience, this recent loss, right away, I was in shock. I was in the shock and trauma, and many people know I've already shared on my podcast that my father passed away. And those first days are so grief and incredibly exhausting emotionally, but they can also be so fucking profound, really. Like there's literally two worlds. And
I
then
know
I
exactly what
had
you
a,
mean.
yeah, I had a close friend. People are like, what do you need? What do you need? And I literally was like, I don't know. Like I'm only the expert maybe outside of myself, but with my own experience, I'm like, I don't know. And then I realized my brain couldn't think of what I needed from people. And so I had my dearest friend came over and brought me soup and goodies that she made, homemade, healthy,
Oh,
and I'm just like, oh, because I wasn't eating, because I wasn't like, it wasn't important. I wasn't thinking about it. It just didn't seem satiating to eat any food. So I was just kind of like, and I'm gonna be fine if I don't eat. But then I'm like,
mhm.
oh, this beautiful vegetable soup. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. And then you feel
Yeah,
better when your body's nourished, right? But
right.
you're not thinking about that. And so it's like, when anyone's in grief, and maybe you have a friend or someone has a birth loss, it's like check in with them. Like,
Yeah,
not like, what do you need? Because they don't even know what they need. Say, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna just drop something by the door. I'm gonna,
it's true.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. But our own experiences really, we get to go, oh, like maybe even we can improve it. Like, oh, because we're gonna have loss in this reality. We're gonna have loss and it's gonna feel how it's gonna feel. There's no preparation for it. Even every birth loss a woman experiences is different, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's not my personal experience. I know women that I've worked with who have multiple losses. They're all very different. And yet, of course, the common theme is heartbreaking and confusing and unsure. But then you come back to your reboot. It's like you tend to that inner terrain. I love your word terrain, and you let your body do what it wants to do to come
Hmm.
back to balance. And of course, there's going to be emotional stuff in the way, but then you're just like, you work on it, right? It's like,
Yeah,
so we're coming up to the end. We could just talk for hours.
yeah. I could
I
always
want
talk to
any
you,
like,
Kelly.
yeah, I know. Any like again, show your book again, show your book again. And I love there's even a great story. Those that are like seeing the video, there's even and hearing, there's a great story on how the symbol of the book came up, which I really appreciated that you added that in because I was thinking about that.
Oh, inside the book.
Yeah, in the book,
Inside
there's
the book.
a little
Yeah. The
paragraph
flower
that
of life.
tells you like how this came into like creation, which is super awesome and
Where
so
is it?
many good.
It's kind of small, but like the
Yeah.
flower of life.
Oh yeah,
Right
yeah, there
there.
we go.
Yeah.
It's so palpable to read the book. It's, I was scared. I was like, because you're science minded, and I know you're very quantum minded, but I was like, oh, is this going to be a science book?
Hmm.
Because I feel like I don't like those books. No offense to the science people, but I like that I
I
could
like to
like,
combine the two though.
yeah, you had some pieces in there which was great, and many pieces, and I'm just like, I almost feel like I could do this book, but I'm not trying to get pregnant. Do you know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Oh no, well, this book is for
Yeah.
everybody,
Oh,
actually.
okay, yeah, because I'm
No,
going,
no, this
wait.
book is for everybody, which is
Ah,
kind of wild. I mean,
yeah.
and it's funny because I felt like that because it's what can help everybody be well. And what can
Yes.
help people be well is going to help people get pregnant, like because you need to be well to be pregnant and well on every level.
I think because I know that's your area, but now my mind is blown going, oh yeah, because I was all like, I'm going to do all this stuff on my body.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. It's
it
for
makes
everybody.
sense. Yeah, especially when you go into like the grounding tools that you can get and like the heart stuff and Dr. Joe. I'm like, yeah, but then I'm like selfishly going, is this for me?
It's for everyone. Yeah, because like
That's so
anything that
awesome. Yeah.
brings life.
I love that. Well, tell us how we can give us your website, your Instagram, and how we can order this book. It's alive and happening, and you can do ebook, you can get a paper book.
Yes, thank you. So, you can find me at michelleoravitz.com. If it eventually could lead to my online or my in-person website. And then on Instagram, I love hanging out on Instagram. It's my favorite place to hang out. It's at the Wholesome Lotus Fertility. And the book you can find on michelleoravitz.com. And then it says the Way of Fertility book, I believe, or it says a book on my, on the list on the menu. And then you can opt in for a free chapter there
Hmm.
if you want to just kind of try it out, feel it out before buying it. And it's basically sold where all books are sold, and Amazon's like the, number one spot. You could just look up the Way of Fertility and it'll come up.
Awesome. Everybody got to get their book, get it on your list, wish list, buy it. It's affordable. It's great. You're going to feel the energy of the energy behind it too is really nice. And so I always feel like we're not just reading words, we're getting an experience to heal, to
True.
be whole, I feel like a higher vibrating human,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. But thank you so
Awesome.
much, Michelle. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Same, Kelly. It's always fun talking to you. I could talk to you for like literally hours. You're just one of those people that I could just keep talking to.
I love it. And you're in my mind when I travel out to Florida area. I'm like, I gotta go where she is, and
Yes.
I will be in touch for sure around that. And thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for the book, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you all for joining episode. What did I say? What episode it was?
190.
There we go. I'm all like, okay, 191. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio with your host, me, Kelly Meehan. Please join my community and stay in touch with monthly energy rants, Spirit Baby poetry, and get access to Spirit Baby 101 with tips and practices at my newsletter at newearthchildren.com. And join me on Instagram with lives at Spirit Baby Medium, and join the Mighty Networks, the Spirit Baby Collective membership, and Motherhood to Mediumship. Remember, you are the heart that holds communication, and it is your time to connect. Come share in the great shift of your mind and the true spirit of your heart with Spirit Baby Communication.